You are now listening to KRAN's podcast, Stories Without Limits. Thank you for tuning in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to KRAN's podcast, Stories Without Limits, where we share real stories and a real experience from people making difference. As we are celebrating Mental Health Week under the theme of Take Action, in today's episode we are talking about how mental health service can be improved by working together with the community. We are joined by amazing guests who have been working together over the past few months to improve services at Kent and Medway Mental Health NHS Trust. Luwam and Hayley, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I'll start with Hayley. Can you introduce yourself, the work that you do and your role, and of course, how did you get involved with KRAN?
Sure. So I'm Hayley. I'm the Community Engagement and Involvement Lead, and I work for Kent and Medway Mental Health NHS Trust. So we're the local NHS Trust who provide care and support around mental health and wellbeing within the county. So I think for us, mental health is just as important as physical health. So everybody has it. We all need to take care of it. And for us as an organisation, it's really thinking about at what point people might come into contact with us. And what we can then do to make sure that those services are helpful and useful and are providing the care that people really need. So I work as part of a team that's focused on involvement and engagement. So making sure that we reach out to individuals and communities to understand what people need from us, what they want from us, to understand the experiences they might be having with us. But to then kind of go one step beyond and say, how can we make it better for you? And would you like to work with us to do that? So I guess that's how we came into contact with KRAN. I think KRAN had actually been in contact with the Trust prior to the development of this team. This team's only about a year old. Sure. But KRAN have been involved with the Trust previously. So I kind of inherited the relationship and I'm really fortunate to have done so, because what it means is that KRAN are working with us to kind of further that community engagement, as we call it, to help us build our understanding of kind of the experiences of refugees and asylum seekers within the county. So that we can then look at doing projects and things together.
It's a wider, one of the things that a lot of people, they misunderstanding is no, I think there was a hashtag to say that no physical health without mental health as well. And the coverage for that one is obviously to kind of understanding how the community works together and how you can just raise this issue alongside rather than just. And I love that your work did involve our young people in a way of they are, because we always feel that we are part of the community, and that's something most of the time we do face. The social media, they kind of separate us to think that we are dealt with it in the other side.
Yeah, my name is Luwam. I work as a youth ambassador at KRAN. So my role involves for young people to represent their voice. So we listen to young people through youth forum, classes, different activities, as well as from my lived experience. So part of it is reach out communities and doing awareness, workshops, events. And then I have my colleague, his name is Shahab, who's another youth ambassador who does the same role as me. So myself and Shahab become peer champion to represent the young peoples with the Kent and Medway Mental Health NHS Trust.
Thank you, Luan, for sharing. So for you, obviously, you and Shahab did involve with this one. So from a perspective of KRAN as an organization, what motivate for us to join and shaping mental health service?
So there are many reasons that why we want to take part with the NHS. Part of is, so we did a campaign in mental health. We had 4 of manifesto: mental health, legal aid, education, housings. So mental health was one of them. And part of our campaigning was to contact different organizations, including the NHS, Mental Health UK Trauma Council. So any relevant organization local here who could actually support us to support our young people. The main reason is because refugee and asylum seeker, due to the trauma they face in the journey, as well as the trauma they face in their own country, the journey they face here in the UK with the systems, with the different culture, with different language, we know there is a challenge that we see in the service in KRAN as well as across different service. So we thought we would be able to make difference by working collaboratively with the NHS, considering it's a national, health. There are a lot of experts, who's professionals who knows about what mental health, for example, what depression is. So many of young people, they, due to cultures and language issues, sometimes they're not aware of like what certain condition is, for example. They're not expected to know in detail, but it's just to be aware of yourself, how you can manage yourself when you actually stress yourself. Can you go out for walk, but these things that early intervention, we don't have it right now. And then we want to do this with the NHS. We feel like they've got experts, they're professional, they've got knowledge and experience, but we actually also feel we have lived experience, the young people have, they can actually collaborate, co-designing all the support that, how they can be supported. And, some young people, they don't like to be called, do you have mental health or something, because in certain languages it does translate in different ways. For example, are you crazy or something? So the narrative, sometimes the way, people word it, the terminology that we use, it can be offending, it can be disrespectful. But by working with the young people, how would you like to be communicated? What do you like to be addressed? How would you like to be supported? I feel really ambitious to be part of this, because I feel like they could be different. And then this is the first time I feel with national health to be involved, to take part, and then to make difference. And then we are looking forward to create a safe environment where our young people can be supported in the way that works for them.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I guess it's like, even though like from a perspective of like a young person who attended classes in KRAN and as like working with KRAN as well, we do acknowledge that we don't have a mental health support as a service within the organization. But a lot of this we try to help our young people through like well-being activities, trying to engage with them. But it's a great to see that, like, as you mentioned, like, the NHS is a big thing. And I guess me and you, we do understand that by, obviously you are studying occupational therapy and then being a nurse at the hospital. There is a lot of coverage that need to help our young people. But it's a small of how young people can be access to that services and support. And I guess for Hayley, back to you, is like, you do have the co-creation champion. Could you just tell us a bit more about this one and why this role is matter to your service?
Yeah, absolutely. Co-creation champions, to kind of clarify, they're individuals who volunteer with the trust to help us shape services. So bringing that lived experience that Luwam was talking about, but trying to work with us, or the aim is to work with us as equally as possible in how we share those ideas and take different projects forward, so that we can co-create and co-design and co-deliver and all the co-things as much as possible. So that might be things like working on surveys or focus groups or workshops or designing resources. There's lots of potential. But champions may be associated with an organisation like KRAN. They might not be. They might just be no just about it. They might be people who are members of the public who have a real strong passion for kind of shaping and improving mental health services and the lives of the people at the end of that, in helping people kind of live well and sort of, live well. So champions, if they are kind of connected to an organisation, they're people who will kind of speak up and champion, essentially, for their community. So kind of promoting what's important and kind of advocating for what's important to the people that they support or work with, or the community that they're a part of. And that's about making sure that we're then really hearing that and that we're working together on what's really important. So yeah, champions just help us to understand lots of different people's experiences in a way that we wouldn't be able to if it was just us sat thinking about it. It's only through conversation, through building those relationships, that we can do this in a really genuine, kind of meaningful way.
I think one of the things that is to be honest, like at the job that we have now, or the role that we have, me and Luwam, it was based on similar thing, is basically to allow young people. So it was like, rather than work for the young people, is basically work with the young people. And if kind of example, like not only just for there to be for them, but also is for any other young person that, and again, when I say young person, that can be anyone. It's not just only like an asylum seeker and refugees. And it's just to see that, like, this is an example, like, that you can be talking about yourself. And we always find that as a youth ambassador or media ambassador, that a lot of young people, once they see us talk about our journey, it's kind of open to them that is a relaxed and safe environment. Is always to have like that kind of, and to enable like them basically to be empowered of how they share their experience. And for both of you, you've been working together over the past few months. How did you find it, Luwam, as an experience of being involved in discussion around shaping the services strategy for the next 5 years? And I'll go back to Hayley to say, like, what's the strategy for your services, basically?
Thank you, Rushan. So we have been involved with the strategic plan as well as taking part with as a peer champion in meetings, different meetings to actually shape the NHS. I think talking about the strategic plan, we feel as KRAN, we feel really privileged to take part of this because it influences for the next 5 years, and then having a voice of our young people, how they can be supported, I think it's really vital for us. And then we feel like, Hayley, you went beyond, I think, to make sure that we were part of it. You know, we can take parts that you have accommodated, whether it's online, you could be in person, which you came with your colleagues. You know, we had time to discuss, and we had time to invite in our service as well here any staff member who's, even if they're not lived experience, they have insight, they see every day on ground working with young people directly. So we had other people as well joining in the meetings. So we had really good discussions, not just to influence the strategic plan, but more than how we can work in a long term. Like, for example, early intervention, how the young people introduce them different service, community service, mental health service locally, where they can go if they feel like they need support with. So I feel it was really good. And then we feel we have been heard. I think generally it's starting really well. I'm looking forward that it will go beyond what we have done so far. For the meetings, we have peer champions. I think for me, it's so nice to see people from different communities, the struggle that they face. Sometimes, like, maybe the mental health, how mental health affects us may be different, but we have common things that we struggle with, whether it's housing, whether it's education, whether so many things affects on our health. But sometimes we think that you don't explain the way I experience it, but when you come together, you can see that we all struggles, we all can support each other. We have so much things to learn from one another, and that's what my experience being in a meeting was something like, wow, I thought it was, sometimes it just feels like asylum seeker or myself being, refugee is all the challenge. It does feel like that sometimes, but when you go out there, I think there are community who really struggles, and then he won't support as well. He won't really proud of supporting people from lived experience who've been through a lot, but still they feel like they've got the strength, motivation to support and make a difference.
I totally agree with you, and I think it's like one of the things that I always find is a lot of how the public thinks, like, obviously through social media, that we are separated. And I guess I said that to you, Hayley, earlier, that is like working with the community, even though is to come together with a struggle, like having the same struggle is not something that it really to celebrate it. But at the same time, it is, because it makes you connected to other people. Like, it makes you connected that we are not just here like for our own self, but there are other people as well who facing similar situation, and we're looking to have the same solution or like different solution, but that can work with both of us. How was it from your perspective, basically, the impact having young people such as Luwam and Shihab been involved with work? But also, again, I want to go back to the strategy, was your strategy, and how that help having both Shihab and Luwam together.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think it's so interesting what you've both been saying, because I did make some notes, and that was one of the things that I'd commented on, was the fact that actually in terms of the strategy, there were lots of things that came out of the conversations that we were having here with KRAN that had been coming up in conversations that we'd been having elsewhere. So whether that was with people that had joined the kind of open sort of focus groups online that we had, so you could literally be anyone from anywhere, or whether they were focus groups that we had with other organisations with specific communities, there were lots of similar themes that were coming out, thinking about what could make somebody's experience of our services better. So sometimes quite simple things, but actually when you're working in a big system, it somehow those things don't always seem to go how we would hope, but they're certainly how we are going to make those changes. So things like being able to access that help and support at the point when you need it, when there's that kind of window of opportunity that we spoke about that quite a lot.
Yes.
But having those kind of regular updates and check-ins if you are on a waiting list, to know that somebody cares, to know that you haven't been forgotten, those things are helpful for anybody and everybody, regardless of kind of your background. And also that kind of partnership working, so working with other organisations, working with the people that know people, and who have that kind of understanding, who can support us to support the individual. But also lots of other things came up that perhaps hadn't come up in those other conversations that were, I suppose, somewhat more unique to this community. And the things that kind of sprung to mind were that stuff that we talked about around the kind of notion of home, and we do a lot of work around, we need care to be closer to home, and we want people to be supported in their home, but actually home means such different things to different people. But even that, actually, that's true of other people in other situations, depending on kind of what their home life's like. But it was something that we hadn't really, or I certainly hadn't really considered until we came into that space with the people here at KRAN, that the young people that were in that group and the staff that were in that group. And similarly, that what you were saying earlier about that kind of the historical trauma and being at greater risk because of that. Again, that can apply to this community, but it can apply to lots of other communities as well. And it just really kind of got us thinking in a slightly different way. And I can't make any promises around how services are going to be shaped, but certainly all of the feedback has been fed into the kind of strategy and the plan that's being put together, and we are hoping to be able to share and launch the final strategy soon. The original version, or the draft version, certainly has been shared with the board, and there's just some refinement going on at the moment, but we'll be feeding back kind of information about that report, the engagement report, with yourselves, because you were part of that process, but also sharing more broadly. But just in terms of having people like yourself and Shahab working with us as champions, and having KRAN working with us as a partner organisation, I think, you really care about your communities and the work that you do. And you've been able to share your own experiences and speak up on behalf of other people and encourage other people to trust us and to talk to us too. And I think that's been so valuable. We just really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for sharing. And one of the things that you did say, is again, peer champion. Just wanted from Luwam to kind of tell us a bit more about what the role means to you, obviously, Luwam, and especially representing young refugees and asylum seeker. And no matter how much we're trying to cover, there is still obviously not fulfilled gap of how things does shape or different for services. But I guess it's the outcome would be for me, to take it is having that seat for us just to be there in order for us to tell our experience is a massive, huge impact that I wish forward for your strategies, and I definitely wish and hope that they sign for it and then to be published. So Luwam, can you tell us more about the peer champion?
Yeah, I think peer champion means for me and Shahab, we've been working together, is having a voice for young people. So refugee and asylum seeker voice is mostly represented by other people. It's never been from lived experience. Look, the media narrative is always negative. It's always someone says about you, but no, the refugee and asylum seeker young people themselves, from their own voice, they didn't get a chance to be heard. So this is something that I'm really passionate about. We are at the service as well. We feel like we can make difference. This is something that we can feel like we can influence. Even maybe we won't be able to change it overnight. As Hayley said, you can't promise, but I think it will take time. Good things takes time, so we will work hard. You're not going to be disadvantaged, by so many things. Challenge may come, along the way, but we are ready to face it, to work collaboratively, positively as well, to challenge each other, whether it's through because of cultures, because of language, because of, how people like to be supported, because we know that when you work in people, the young people we have is from different world, let alone, the countries, even as an individual, if you look at different cultures, different languages, so supporting, I feel like there will be a challenge, but they're human at the end of the day. So they need support, they need to be heard, they need to be valued and respected. And then this is something that I feel like being a champion means to listen to people, actually to go to where they are, and listen to them and see how we can support them, not to look at them. There is, a culture, but there is a culture within a culture. So, sometimes people assume all the, for example, I can talk about my country, all the Eritrean people like this, but it doesn't say everything about the Eritrean people, there is culture within culture with families. So I think it's good to hear individuals' experience, listen to them. And my role is to represent their voice as much as possible.
Sure, indeed. I think like both of you learn from each other, and it's not only just one way. I think it's a win-win, if I can say it that way. Within, as you said, like I believe like it's always like from our side as well as the young people, it's not only just is for the mental, like Hayley services as well, to just learn our side of our culture, but it's also as a young people is to learn what access of services that they are. And again, it's like having to be educated is not enough, but also is having to know. And I'm still, until now that I struggle I'm not going to say I'm a struggle to go to the GP or anything, but even though working with at the hospital, but it's still, there are culture of how English culture, let's say that way, of how to access things and how to say things and how to be there, like obviously for the young people to understand I think it's work both sides, if I'm trying to make sense of what I'm saying. But it sounds like this is collaboration that you has created a real change. What are some of the key improvement or ideas that come out of this partnership from your perspective, Hayley?
And I think that was one of them, that kind of exact point. That's what we were talking about at the end of those kind of strategy conversations, was how can we work together with the champions, with the young people here, to do some of that work around understanding mental health. What do we mean by that? But also thinking about reducing the stigma around that, but thinking about the language, and not just in terms of translation, although that's the whole thing, potentially, but also the language that we use when we say, as you said earlier, what do we mean by mental health? And so I think that's a piece of work that we definitely need to follow up on. We hold our hands up. We haven't moved forward with that yet, but I think that would be a really lovely idea that we could do some great work around, and maybe develop some resources. I think that was one of the things that we talked about, or co-designing some resources that would help perhaps in those situations, so that people are more confident or able or have the words to say, actually, I do need some help and support now. Mm-hmm. And whether that's with our services, or whether that's actually just reaching out to the GP or reaching out to talking therapies, which is a slightly different part of the NHS to us, just to confuse matters. We're both called Kent and Medway, but we are separate things. Mm-hmm. But if people do need support from our services, again, it's trying to come up with ways that we can encourage and support people to have that confidence, to have those conversations, but also to know what to expect, or what you can expect from us in return. So that was one of the main things that we talked about and we need to take forward.
How was it for you, from your perspective, Luwam? Like, was the key outcome there is from this partnership?
I think for me is work collaboratively together. I feel like we can make a difference. That is something that I have hope, and the young people, I feel like refugee and asylum seeker young people are so disadvantaged when it comes to mental health. They're disadvantaged in so many services, but mental health is something that we know for a fact they struggle with it because of the traumas they face to get here. And been in the UK with all the systems, immigrations, housings, educations, it's everything. Sometimes the system seems against you. It doesn't work with you. So I feel really passionate, and I feel like this is a time that we could, when it comes to mental health, there are other things that we are working as a service, as KRAN, as well as Youth Ambassador, to represent different services like housing, education. But mental health is something that we have as a big agenda. We feel like we can make difference, and then we have, so far, we've been working really well, and we've been heard, we've been valued. Even if we haven't done anything that you can see, like practically, we're actually progressing really well.
Thank you so much for sharing. Before we wrap up, I would love to ask both of you, what message would you like to give to other young people or the community members who might want to get involved and have their voice heard? I'll start with you, Hayley.
I guess for me, it's just to say that we are here, we are listening, and we do want to and would love to work with you. So if there's things that you've got to say, or if you're just curious to kind of find out a bit more, then, talk to Shahab, talk to Luwam. If you want to talk to me, like, they've got my details, because we'd just love to work with more people. And we just really want to invite everybody to be a voice for change, to be a part of our co-creation community so that we can, take things forward for everybody. So,
Thank you so much. And for you, Luwam?
Yeah, I think for me is every young person's voice is valued, so nothing you say will be wrong, and you can fill out a survey. It doesn't have to be coming in person, talking to me, to Shahab or find Hayley. I think there's different ways of doing it. You just, I want the young people that they value. There are people who want to listen their experience, and then I don't want young people voice to be represented by other young people. Sometimes they change it and then they may misunderstood it, but it's nice to hear from lived experience how they would like to support or what they like to be change. It's not about support sometimes. Like, I want to change. I can do this. I have this idea. I think we'll look forward from any young person or anyone from a community to be part of it, make difference.
Thank you so much for both of you and for having the time to share your experience working together and collaboratively. And as I said before, like earlier, I hope that goes wider for every young person. And I guess not only just the young person, as you both said, but also people who work with the young people who work with friends, family, who they can be obviously having take advantage of this opportunity and work together. As we come to the end of today's episode, one thing is clear: real change happens when people are given the space to speak, share and shape their services that affect their life. It's not just about improving services, it's also about building trust, understanding communities, and creating something that truly works for everyone. Once again, thank you for both of you. Big thanks to our guests Hayley and Luwam sharing their experience, and thank you for our listeners to Story Without Limits. Please don't forget to listen to our previous episode on KRAN's website. Till next time, stay tuned and connected.